Welcome to the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I am Kristen Johnson.
Happy Thursday and all that good stuff. Hope you guys are doing well. We got a great show, of course, for you guys. We're real excited. I mean, bringing back Dr. Michael Lynch.
Are we bringing sexy back? Is that what we're doing?
Bringing sexy back. Oh.
Hey, that was nice.
Well, I meant that toward myself. You, of course, are always sexy.
Thank you.
My love. However, I wanted to tell the audience
Lynch.
a little bit about some of the research we're doing. You know, one of the things we talk about a lot is hypnagogic and hypnopompic states.
Mm-hmm.
And these are states where you're just starting to fall asleep or just waking up. Hypnagogic and hypnopompic states are the state you're in mentally just before and after sleeping. It is a transitory line between the three-dimensional world you know so well and the foggy, hazily remembered land of the subconscious we call sleep. It is in these states that the mind begins to slip. It's a bit like skiing for the first time, where you're standing on your skis, ready to go, and gravity happens to notice the gentle slope of the beginner's hill that you're standing on and begins to move you forward without you trying to. It is a short-lived slide into the whoosh, and you're on your way. That's how I would call it. But yeah, I was writing stuff down, people. And the thing that was interesting, why I wanted to bring this up, was because Googling, of course, we use Google like our library now, and Google, when you do a search, a lot of times you'll see it fills in the blanks for you and makes a more complete sentence. And if you Google hypnagogic, hypnopompic states, it'll immediately throw in hallucinations as an option to search for, which I did. And I thought, well, hallucinations, well, that's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. People who are just hallucinating the things that happen in these states. And I don't really believe that 100%.
No, we don't.
But it had a link to WebMD. You know, webmd.com that we all know and love. And per WebMD, it noted that these hallucinations are a symptom of mental illness. Experts don't know exactly what causes them. Key point there. Experts don't know exactly what causes them,
right, but
they know they aren't a cause for concern. Well, that's really interesting, right?
Sure.
That's a pretty bold statement when you think about it. We don't know what they are, but, don't be too concerned. Now, mind you, this is the state where people see, shadow man. They have alien abductions tend to happen mostly in the state, not exclusively. Same thing with the shadow people, like for you, for instance. Mm-hmm. Growing up, you would see them in these states, but you would see them outside of the states. But it is kind of a gateway. It's like a gateway drug, that it brings you to this land of the subconscious where all these things can really come to life. I had an old hag experience, was in a hypnopompic state. I was just waking up. I woke up from the experience. I was suffocating, and that's how I came out of the thing, or I felt like I was anyways. We've talked about that on the show quite a bit, so I won't go into it. But these states are pretty important, and there does seem to be the link to your subconscious, and this is where things start to become more symbolic, and things come through, and people have these amazing experiences. Yet you go to something you might know and trust, like WebMD, and it tells you, hey, we don't know what it is, but it's not a cause for concern.
No.
That being said, it's definitely an area of research we're working on. I want to bring on our guest. He's returned. The return of Dr. Michael Lynch. He is a guest star of World's Scariest Places, the Nat Geo show Taboo, MTV's show Fear. He was on Destination America Live, Exorcism Live. Yet we've not talked about the exorcisms too much. No, maybe we'll go there a little later. He's been on all sorts of radio shows from coast to coast to, pretty much anything you can imagine nationally. He's a good friend of ours. We love talking to him, so let's bring him right on. Good evening, Dr. Mike.
Yeah,
good evening, sir.
Thanks for re-inviting me. I'm like a vampire. You have to invite me back before, you hear from me again. So
you have crossed the threshold.
Yeah, I've crossed the threshold. That's true. And I'm right there with you. You know, here's the problem that we have. It's believability. Okay. If you believe, now, again, let's just go in the world of hypotheticals here. Okay. I don't want to step on anybody's toes, especially WebMD, you know, whatever they do. But anyway, so the theory here is that dreams are nothing but, because of Freud and Jung, the whole idea is that dreams are a reflection of the subconscious during the day. And so they give you symbols or imagery to make you reflect on the substance of that day. Now that's the theory. That is what main medical theory is that this is just a reflection. And the hypnosis is for remembering something. Okay.
Okay.
Now, John Mack, and he's got several books out there. He's dead now, but John Mack took under almost 100 plus people, and he hypnotized them to go back to an alien abduction scenario. Now, John Mack was a Harvard psychologist, Harvard-trained psychologist. He was a teacher.
That's right.
Was, by the book, cut and dry. And he got into trouble not because of what he was doing with hypnosis. He got in trouble because he was breaking the threshold of, do you believe in alien abductions? And most hypnotherapists and psychologists do not believe in alien abductions, and they don't believe in near-death experiences. There's a lot of things they don't believe, and in the hypnotic state or hypnagogic state, where you can train your own mind and you can recall all this information, that is like self-help. That's self-help. So you can deal with the trauma of the state of what you're dealing with. So if you were abused as a child, hypnosis is good to go back, relive that trauma, deal with that trauma psychologically, because you're an adult now and you have adult abilities to grasp those concepts of that abuse, and then you can deal
the whole
with
scenario. Yeah.
Now, this is just not for you. This is not for you today. This is for you 10 lifetimes ago, when a donkey hit you in the head and you died. But before you died, you had a brain aneurysm, and then you developed migraines. And so in this lifetime, you have migraines, and you don't know where they come from. You don't know how they got there. But if you have a past, go get hypnotized, follow that migraine back to its source. You'll find back in ancient Greece, when you were a trader of pottery or whatever,
Sure.
a mule kicks you in the head, and you have migraines for every incarnation afterward. Okay. Now, under real hypnosis, you can go back, you can manipulate that memory to where it will have no effect on you. You'll see the memory, it'll all happen, but it will have no effect. When they pull you out of hypnosis, your migraines are gone. Okay. I've seen the same thing happen with arthritis, where people go under hypnosis, hypnagogic hypnosis, straight through, and they go back to the source of this arthritis. Well, they come to find out that a couple of lifetimes ago, you died, you would die of arthritis or inflammation of the joints and things like this, rheumatoid arthritis, and you would just, become in so much pain that you would actually just kind of die. So if you're developing rheumatoid arthritis at a very young age, like in your 40s, or even children now develop rheumatoid arthritis, that they can actually take them back, find the source of when this all began, and pull it right out of them, and they can walk out of the room with absolutely no pain whatsoever. Okay?
Right. That reminds me like the thing of where a person might have an unusual birthmark and perhaps they were stabbed there in the past lifetime.
Yeah, if you want to talk about reincarnation, there's a 600-page book out there, has photos and everything from an author in India that talks openly about reincarnation and the scars in the new life. Okay, so we get to a point where memory, our spiritual conscious memory, remembers that to such a point that when you get into this body, it will manifest. So your body becomes compliant to your memory, and your reality becomes compliant to that thought.
All right. This seems to happen at like an embryonic stage.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about birthmarks and stuff. The embryo is maybe more aware than we know.
Oh, it is totally aware. It is totally aware. And the whole thing is that normal psychology does not even want to go there. They don't believe in alien abductions. They don't believe in past lives. They don't believe in curing diseases through your mind. But I've got Chinese doctors. I've got Russian doctors. I've got John Mack. I've got Dolores Cannon. Okay, if you want to go there.
Sure.
Dolores Cannon put under 1,000 people with alien abduction scenarios, and they all come back saying the same thing. Whether the idea was implanted in their mind by the aliens, that they agreed to this, and they agreed to it before they were even born, that they would be abducted.
Right.
Or they implant that into their mind while the abduction is taking place. It's like save the earth, take care of your body, and you wanted this to happen before you were born. I mean, it's just a nice little thing that you can say, and we all lived happily ever after, type idea. But when you have John Mack, Dolores Cannon, and a handful of others, there's another guy out in California, Goldberg, something like that. Anyway, he did hypnosis therapy like this. And people were actually describing the entire alien abduction. But if you have a straight, get on the couch, tell me your problem type psychologist, he doesn't believe. He has to, in one aspect, he has to be neutral. He can't take sides. He can't voice an opinion. And I understand that. You are neutral. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can't cross that threshold and say, where do you think this memory came from? And if they say near a past life, well, then you have to run with that, or you're never going to cure that patient. If they say alien abduction, you just have to run with it, and that's what John Mack did. I think that's why
the pages add up, and you've got logbooks and all these records of the same phenomena occurring over and over. If we're talking about things like embryonic manipulation, I mean, that right. does sound like a little bit nefarious. I mean, let's call it what it is, right? I mean, it sounds a little bit like breeding programs and implanted memories and that sort of thing. But those states do seem to be a direct link to your subconscious, which does seem to be the thing that unites us all, right? It seems like the subconscious gets out there, and that is the thing. That's the thing where you're tapping into. If you're a remote viewer, you want to tap into the subconscious, because the subconscious does know what the target is. It doesn't matter how esoteric the target name is or whatever. It can be as random as it can be. It doesn't matter. The subconscious knows. But to think, wow, they're playing with embryos.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, there's nothing stopping them if that's the way. But if you look at it through reincarnation, they will. There was a case not too long ago. I think it was just before COVID came out. There was an astronaut in one of the space shuttles that came back down to Earth and blew up, and it spread debris all over Texas. That was that shooting star kind of thing. One of the astronauts there was Indian. Okay, and about 3 years later, a little girl was born in India, and she claimed that she was an astronaut and that she was on the space shuttle when it went and blew up. She actually gave the name of her former self, and so her parents took her to this other astronaut's parents and said, I think this is your little girl. Can you put this together? And she did. She said, exactly. Yeah, you're my parents. This is your names. This is why we're in America, blah, blah, blah. And she just went all the way down the list. Other things like this. There was a little boy who loved airplanes. And after they're hypnotized, they go back to that life that they were in such a trauma with, and they have to relive it. But then when they come back out, if they can't let go of it, because it was their memories, it was their former self, then that's just part of who they are.
Wasn't he in World War I or World War II? I think it was. Yes, I remember the story.
Yeah, on a funny aircraft carrier, like the Tacoma. No, not Tacoma.
With Tacoma, but
something like that.
Yeah, it was off a carrier, and he knew like all the people in the squadron and who he was flying with. He knew all their names,
and they took him back to a reunion of that squadron, and he knew all their names. He knew who they were, and they dressed him up in a little uniform, and he just fit in. So
it's weird, but it's cute.
It's bizarre. They went out and had a ceremony. Tell you how traumatic this was. They go out to the place where he's supposed to crash somewhere around Okinawa, and perform a ceremony to let the spirit go. But what they were, trying to do is just suppress that memory, just have him deal with that trauma, and then come out of it.
Do you think that helps when they try to let the spirit go?
No, not really, because he's not being possessed. That's just him. That's just his consciousness. If you could remember all your lifetimes, let's say you had 10 lifetimes before this one. If you could remember them all, you would pick out the good and the bad, and the good lessons and the bad lessons of each lifetime. And as they come together, you know that fire is hot, and chickens lay eggs. You'll develop these things, and then when you're born again, you just retain it. That's just part of you. That's who you are. It's like taking another passion of yours and then just not, just suppressing it. And
right.
I can tell you, back in the 70s, a lot of housewives suppressed a lot of things with, mama's little pill.
Yes.
But, it was Valium. It was Valium. That's how psychology.
Help her.
Yeah. It was Valium. It was Thorazine. Prozac was developed.
Yeah.
But the doctors who prescribe Thorazine in liquid form, you can still get it today in an eyedropper and take, to reduce your anxiety. I mean, it's just a natural product. Lithium is what is made out of lithium. And lithium batteries are now in competition. The pharmaceutical company and the lithium battery companies are now in competition because they're after the same lithium.
All right.
And it's very hard to dig up and process, So the more batteries we make, the less medicine we have. But
it's interesting. Some of this stuff like lends credence to ideas of life is a simulation theory.
It is.
And that you're playing the same game. It's like Pac-Man remembering chomping the dots 3 games ago.
Deja vu is a typical.
Yeah.
Deja vu is a typical thing that runs through the mind. I've been here before. I think I've been. This stuff feels familiar.
I get that very often.
And people get it more and more, but they get it when they go into the past. So it's like I'm walking through a Mayan temple or a Roman Colosseum, and I get visions of what's going on. Now, is that a time slip, or am I remembering something from that time that I was alive and functioning in that society? Okay. Now, the old way of handling this, if lithium didn't work, if Thorazine didn't work, and booze didn't work, they just electroshock therapy you, and for you to forget. And that was their main, and it's coming back. Electroshock therapy in small dosages is coming back. So they don't pass the line of really what's wrong with you. Is this a past life? Is this an alien abduction? They'll never go there, you see. So they say, oh, well, you've got something in your past, a trauma, hallucination, whatever. And what we're going to do is check into the hospital for a couple of days, and we're going to shock it. We're going to shock it out of you, And that is exactly the method of operation. And it still goes on again today. There was a few years there where they didn't. And this is where, well, I hate to bring up the 70s, but this is where back in the 70s, people didn't have these problems because they were smoking weed and taking hashish. You know what I'm saying? And these were natural, organic ways of dealing with stress and problems. Okay?
Sure. Well, I'm pretty sure they do those things.
Yeah, but because of Richard, because of Richard Nixon. Sorry about the politics.
Yeah, right. He started on drugs.
He banned. Yeah, and the U.S. government owns the patent to a strain of marijuana, which they grow in Arkansas. So they grow the best marijuana in the world, and it's in an acre fenced up down in Arkansas. But anyway, all I'm saying is they know that there's natural ways of dealing with stress, anxiety, and trauma. Okay, and they will never cross that line to find out what it is. It's just a big, hamster wheel. So there are a handful, and this is where John Mack made, he just blew the book wide open and said, if these people are suffering from alien abductions or a stubbed toe, we need to find out what is going on. And then that's where everyone just slammed him, like, oh, they'll hate us. You're going to bring a doubt and conspiracy upon the field of psychology by doing this. And,
right. It wasn't taken seriously by some of his peers.
Yes.
It's just so outside, and that's the whole thing. Science can't grow if we don't think outside the box, right?
That's right. If you can't push the boundaries of new science, which we are at right now on the threshold, not only pushing them but implementing them, then you have to look back at the whole scientific community. There's stuff back in 1880s, and when Britain ruled the world and decided what dodo birds were. I mean, they're like turkeys that don't fly. You know what I'm saying? They said we are the end all of the scientific community. And yet during that time, there were so many controversies of new civilizations, of civilizations that have disappeared and need to be dug back up, and all this other stuff. You see what I'm saying? So yes, if we don't push science, even psychology, even hypnosis, all this, we need to push it to find out more about the human consciousness, even if it doesn't go anywhere, even if it's a dead end, then okay. But let me just tell you this. What doctor in his right mind, when a patient rolls up their sleeve and says, that wasn't there yesterday, and there's puncture marks, and the doctor goes, that's idiosyncratic, man. I don't know what that is. Right. I don't, put a Band-Aid on it. Here's some
mental illness if it.
Yeah. Are you stabbing yourself? Yeah. Right. You must be self-inflicted.
A reasonable explanation
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Self-inflicted wounds. You're DTs. Where you cut yourself to feel you're alive. And people are sitting there going, that's ludicrous. You have no interest in the world to resolve that person's issues or problems, and you're giving them a placebo and a Band-Aid, and you're going to call that science. That's medical science.
Well, that placebo does work more often than it should.
51%. 51%. Yeah, and there's a prescription name that the doctor will write. I forgot the name. It's like Sutra, Pseudo something. It has some weird name. And all pharmacies know that that's just a sugar pill. It's a saccharin pill. That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the body does the rest. Like I said, I have Chinese doctors that can put you into a hypnagogic state and cure everything: heroin addictions, cocaine addiction, fentanyl. They can cure it because your mind is curing it. They put you in this. Okay. Now I'm going to back up a little bit. We're going to talk about cures tonight. I didn't mean to talk about cures tonight, but we're going to talk about some cures.
Sure.
This Chinese doctor puts everybody into a relaxed hypnagogic state, and they lie down. They become so relaxed. He uses his chi, and he strips. Now, if you're a Christian, you'd call this laying on of hands.
Mm-hmm.
But he strips the sickness from you, and your body.
CHI.
Chi, yes.
Energy.
CHI, yeah, chi energy.
Energy manipulation.
I love that.
Right, and he strips it out of your body, and your body just detoxes automatically. In 2 sessions, you're cured of a lifetime of heroin addiction. You see, we don't have anything. We don't have anything that even comes close to that. Okay, 2 days, two sessions.
Yeah. Can't beat the mind.
You can't beat the mind. The mind controls it all. But what we've done in America, I'm going to step on a lot of people's toes here. I'm sorry about this, but this is the truth.
That's
Go
just
for it.
facts.
We eat an inflammation or inflammatic diet produced by the food industry, FDA. The food industry accepts our diet,
Mm-hmm.
and our diet is killing us.
It's literally making us sick. Yeah.
It is literally making us sick. It's rotting your tendons. It's rotting your ligaments, the discs in your spine. Your bones are leaching because of lack of calcium, which they need more oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone is eating the American diet. I don't care what you're eating. It's just the American diet. It's cornflakes or whatever. And 90% of this is based on corn, from corn oil, cornflakes to Doritos, MSG, and like I said, all the other toxins there. But the point what I'm saying is it's inflammatic. It will create inflammation in your body. And it's the first destroyer of your body is inflammation. And so we do everything in the medical field and not to thin the blood. I hate to get on my soapbox here. I'm sorry, but to thin the blood to reduce. They give you.
Marie says 100%.
They give you blood thinners to thin your blood so the inflammation appears to go away.
Yeah,
it's not. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's like I'm going to give you a pill for cholesterol and say eat all the butter and ice cream you want, drink all the milk you want, And cholesterol is a sign of lack of oxygen. It's a pure sign, and it's like, we don't need any more corn in our diet. We have corn-fed beef. We have corn oil. We have that sugar they make out of corn.
Corn
syrup.
Corn syrup. It's all in our diet. Every Snickers bar, everything we have is enriched with corn or sugar. And the Native Americans, as far back as the Aztecs and Mayans, traded in corn. They didn't really eat it as much, but they traded in it. Okay, so corn is sugar. It's basically sugar. We make moonshine out of it. We make whiskey out of it. So the whole thing is that everything you touch, vodka is made out of potato mash, which is inflamed. It's inflammatic. Corn oil. All this stuff. Okay. So we've got all these hormones in our beef that cause inflammation. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And people get in their 40s and 40 to 45, and they already are picking up pains that a 6-year-old should have. They're developing the same symptoms as a 6-year-old, and they're in their 40s, and they just say, "Oh, I just can't do that." You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, it's marketing. We have the same illnesses we had then, but we have the drugs to keep us going a little longer, like you mentioned, blood thinners, and that keeps the blood
cholesterol breakers. Beta blockers.
Arteries. Yeah. So you live a little longer, where in a past age, that would have just been it, and you'd have been done at 30.
Well, yeah. If you're working on the pyramids, you were done at 30. If you're just running through the jungle, you could probably live to 50, 55, doing pretty well.
As long as they fight you.
Yeah, and as long as you didn't get eaten by a lion or a tiger or a bear.
Jaguar.
Or another tribe that happens to be cannibals.
That's true too. Yes.
the sacrifices that they used to do down south, pull out your heart and everything to feed to the gods. So the whole thing is, I don't get any respect, is what the whole thing is. Anyway, the whole thing is,
in Dangerfield, yeah.
The whole thing is that we have in America everything you could possibly ever imagine. Our Walmarts are filled, our Targets, our Costco's are filled. We got everything to think of in every variety. Okay, and yet we have the worst diet on the planet.
It's true.
Yeah, we do. We do, all in the name of marketing. Now, we did have a comment out there.
Yes.
From Adriana. Says something different. A medical doctor, no paranormal. No, that is not quite the case. We are getting into the paranormal here, and I don't believe you are quite a medical doctor.
No, I'm not. No, I'm a psychologist. Psychologist. Yeah. And so the thing is in medicine. I'm going to tell you. The first book that ever came out on near-death experiences was written by a doctor. And all he did was, when people came back from a near-death experience, or close call, as he would say, Raymond Moody is the doctor. Raymond Moody's produced several books. And Daniel Brinkley was one of his main subjects. He saw almost for 2 years straight, like once a week or once a month. And Raymond Moody had this, it wasn't a class, it was like an AAA meeting where everyone got together who had a near-death experience and who couldn't quite tell their families about it. So in the land of Christianity, we're talking about God and angels, these people were afraid to talk about near-death experience. Man. Okay, so Raymond put together these sessions where people could just talk about it. Oh, this is what happened to me, and I saw Aunt Martha. I saw these angels. I saw someone that reminded me of Jesus. Blah blah blah.
Right, which is a paranormal experience.
Right,
you got to take it in those terms. You're seeing things that don't, other people are not seeing.
Right.
And you're having spiritual communication.
And at that point, they would dub you nuts. A lot of people went into
the they were dubbed nuts. Oh, yeah.
Family.
So here's Raymond Moody, a medical doctor, an MD, and he's listening to these people. And of course, he's not a trained psychologist, but I'm sure that he can see if they're lying or not, or if this is an exaggeration.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? And he's looking at them like, okay, these guys have had an experience that psychologically they've never experienced before, or they don't know how to deal with it. Okay. And so he was just having these sessions so these people could just talk about it, breathe about it. But I talked to a friend of mine, and his mother had a near-death experience. She waited 20 years. 20 years. And then at Thanksgiving, she goes, remember back in 86 when I had that operation?
It all comes out of Thanksgiving.
All comes out of Thanksgiving. Color purple, everything comes out of Thanksgiving. But I'm just saying, it's just these people were not ashamed of it. They were afraid of it. And they were afraid that other people would look at them funny. And I'm sitting there going, if you've gone to church all your life, I don't care if you're Muslim or whatever, Hebrew, Pentecostal, name it, and you're afraid to talk about near-death experience, which is all, steeped in love and mercy and forgiveness, and you're afraid to talk about it because it may ruffle some feathers in the Christian church or the Muslim church or whatever, that's lunacy. That is lunacy. That's not the person who's crazy. That is everybody around them that's crazy.
Right.
And that's a fact. Okay. It's right. like the guy who goes to the I went to a couple, actually. I didn't have a paranormal problem at the time. I was just getting into understanding the paranormal. And I went to a paranormal group session, which a friend of mine, a psychologist, was giving. And he was just wanting people to talk about their paranormal experience. And it could have been anything: ghosts, phantom, shadow people, you name it. And I was sitting there taking notes. I was the only guy in the room taking notes. I don't know why anyone else was, but anyway, I was taking notes. Anyway, and so everybody there talked about their paranormal problems. I bought this house. It was riddled with ghosts. I bought this car. It had a ghost in it, or whatever. And it had driven them to the edge of their sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen. I sit there and watch in this group, this one little session, people who have lost fortunes talking to psychologists, other people who lost fortunes talking to
psychics.
Psychics to do exorcisms and
yes,
and goes on and on. Bless my, everyone in the family got baptized and they went to church 24/7. They had it on church radio all the time. There are things greater than all your imagination, Horatio. There are far things greater than earth and sky, Horatio. And that's what people don't understand is that. Okay. Now for everyone out there who doesn't really know me, I'm going to break it down into two factions, and this is what the war is right now. In modern science, whatever you want to call modern science, whether we're talking about dodo birds or whatever, there's two types of scientists, and I want to make this clear.
Mm-hmm.
One is materialism. This materialism, okay? This pin is real. It's made of material, and I believe that they're real because I'm made out of material. And therefore, this desk is made out of material. So it's all real. It's real. I just accept
in the
it.
3D matrix that
we're in the 3D matrix. And I can break that down to it's nothing but geometric Mellenbrot sets, fractals. It's nothing but fractal geometry. And it just goes, the whole concept of architectural intelligence in our universe is a fractal. That's all it is. It's just a fractal. It's just fractal mathematics. Anyway, okay. The other set, the other people the materialistic people hate these guys because we deal in energy. Flat out plasma, straight out energy. Energy. Mm-hmm. That's all we think about. That's all we know. That's where we're going. That's the breaking down of that box is energy. That's all we deal with. And so when I wrote the equation, like others in the science field wrote the equation E equals I, it solved 90% of the paranormal. Energy equals information. Now, materialism, you don't get that, not unless you're talking about the synapses of the brain or brain mapping or brain patterns in your spinal cord. Mm-hmm. That's when energy equals information. Because it's a data loop. I touch something, it affects my senses. Therefore, therefore it's real. Okay.
It's a hard thing to measure, right?
Yeah.
So it gets complex because everybody has a different experience.
Right.
But I totally understand what you're saying. Where you're going with that?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where we're all bound to, the Lord phone, God phone.
Oh, I got mine around here somewhere.
It's
mine's on the other
our link to the outer world, even though we can see it with the senses that, may or may not be God given, depending on.
Okay, when you pick up that phone and you put it next to your head, just remember there's 100,000 cell phone signals going through your skull plus that phone.
That's right.
Right. It emits.
Yeah, sure. I mean, standing near your microwave when you cook something, throws an immense amount of EMF. The paranormal investigators out there in the audience, I'm sure you've taken your K2 near a microwave when it's on, and that's the most haunted microwave in the world at that point until it dings.
Remember the old computer screens that had the tube in it? The big ones. Okay.
Sure.
You put a K2 meter or EMF meter by that, man, the bleed was so bad. I mean, people were getting radiation right through their bodies, and they didn't even realize it.
Wow.
But that is the crazy thing about the paranormal. We uncover all of this other crazy energy that is really harmful to us. But it's like cigarettes. Well, we don't know if they cause cancer, but we definitely know they cause emphysema, you know.
Right.
So,
oops, sorry, it's twice.
so maybe all this, you know, stuff we've got is really damaging it, just damaging our cellular DNA, just like everything else. And if it gets damaged, if our DNA gets damaged and it starts to reproduce itself, then it reproduces damaged Michael Lynch. You know, I'm damaged.
Right, generations going forward.
Right.
Yeah, right. You could create some sort of problem there with the generations going forward. Certainly
sterility. Sterility.
Yeah.
That's what's happening, sterility.
Yeah, well, there's less interest in having children too now. So I don't know if that's a society thing. If I think we talked a bit about the Georgia Guidestones on our last time we talked, and about population control, which is out of control.
Right.
And it does seem to be a movement, whether it's intentional or not, to having less children. It's not religious based, and it's not like the Catholic Church is saying that thou shall not wear a rubber. And we don't have that anymore.
No. Well, that's a long rabbit hole, but let me just tell you, there was a guy named George Green, and you can look him up, George Green. He's got a lot of videos on YouTube. And the last time I heard about George Green was that he got his ticket to go to Mars. And this was about 10 years ago. But George Green said that on Monday, he went and talked to the people that wanted to save humanity. And on Tuesday, he went and talked to the people that wanted to destroy it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, on Wednesday, he sold the patent.
And on Wednesday, they made the profit of somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah,
somewhere in between, they made the profit. That's right. And you cannot say we didn't have a 20-year war just to be poor.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make some sense at all. We're being nice to the Afghanis by destroying their country for 20 years.
Penny Harris says, dang, I never thought about that. And I think she's referring to the microwave.
Yes.
And I use it all the time. What about the coffee pot? Not as bad with the coffee pot.
Oh man, we're all
the
screwed.
The thing is, an underlying theme through some of what we're talking about here is that in this 3D world that we live in, our experiences that we get through our senses is very, very limited. And that's something we talk about a lot. It's very, very limited as to the scope of what's really going on around you. You just can't perceive it. You don't perceive the Wi-Fi signal going through you, the Bluetooth, or all the different signals going through you. And it's not to say 5G is going to make you crazy. We're not barking up that tree. It's just that already right now in your own environment, there is so much going on that you can't possibly, your brain cannot interpret.
Can't process
Can't take it in.
It's
doesn't see it.
You can't see it. You can't feel it. No senses are involved with this at all. So
then you must be crazy.
Right.
You must be
crazy.
I need
that lithium or Thorazine or something.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. We all need a pill. We need a Mr. Happy pill. Okay. Now, when I was growing up, there was only 5 senses. And then the 6th sense was the paranormal. It was the spiritual sense. It's just the spirit that the church kind of locked up and not told anybody about. And we were never supposed to talk about the 6th sense. Well, but Rod Serling could talk about it. Isaac Asimov's theater could talk about it. Alfred Hitchcock could talk about it.
Sure.
It was fantasy.
Right.
Fantasy. Okay. It's fantasy. Okay. But when we say no, the 6th sense is real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a lucid dream. It's not a lucid dream.
Right.
It's a reality. It's in our reality. It is a reality amongst itself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people get on to me about a lot of things, but here, I'm just going to put this out for you. I'm going to put this out to people who don't trust me. Now, we wrote the equation for consciousness, and then we wrote the equation for E=I, which explains 90% of the paranormal world. The 10% we had to narrow down to find what the paranormal was made out of. Now, we all knew by near-death experiencers and other people. You knew that it was love. Love. And Jesus and John talked a lot about love, okay? And forgiveness as well. Okay, so we went through every signal that we could understand. Microwaves, RF, FM, we go down the list. There's over like 5,000 known frequencies. And then there's one that meets all of the bill, and it was tachyons. Love is tachyons. Tachyon wavelength is love. And tachyons come from outside of our universe. They inundate everything. They go into the future and into the past. And they help technical remote viewers get to where they're going, as well as angels and you. Okay?
Yeah.
So it all came to me in a flash. I said, what did they do back in the 70s? You know, because I'm like a little history buff. Back in the 70s, they said something like, okay, here's pyramid power. And if you put wheat into a pyramid, it slows its aging process. And the Russians did a lot of this work. Okay. So then they said, well, I'm going to put a grape into a pyramid and see if it, put a grape outside, put a grape inside, and see the differences. Okay. The grape in the pyramid slowed its aging, did not decompose. Okay. So I'm going, oh my God, this is great. This is great. And I said, what about in Atlantis, Thoth, the last priest of Atlantis, talks about the Atlantean temples, and to have an out-of-body, you can't have an out-of-body experience. If you didn't have an out-of-body experience, you couldn't be a priest. Okay. Mm-hmm. What does everyone talk about when they talk about Atlantis, from Edgar Cayce right on to Baklava, that Russian chick? But anyway, all I'm saying is it was crystals. Always comes out crystals. Crystals. That. I get it.
Very important. Yeah.
Very important. Okay, so we put it all together. Pyramid power, crystals. What are they doing? They're focusing tachyons.
Now, for our audience, who isn't familiar, lead us through what that exactly is, please.
Okay, a tachyon is a wavelength that animates living cells. You cannot have evolution without tachyons. You cannot have energy transfer without tachyons. Tachyons is that unique energy. And like I said, the Greeks called it a taboo, a fussy, not demonic, but a fussy energy they couldn't quite put into a box because it was so elusive. And it is true. It was so massive, we even overlooked it 100 times. We couldn't see the forest because of the trees. We were looking at all this little stuff. And then this was everywhere we looked, into the whole universe, tachyons existed. Okay. So I'm looking for cures. Okay. I'm looking for cures to trauma, psychosomatic traumas and all this other stuff that no one else wants to even address or acknowledge. Okay. So one day I go, the near-death experiencers, the pyramid power people, the crystal ball people, the reason why the gypsy looks into the crystal ball is because it's focusing tachyons into our consciousness so that she can see the timeline of life.
So the tachyons sound a little bit like the chi that you mentioned earlier.
It is. It's the same thing. It's the focusing.
It's basically that energy that we can manipulate. Kind of like when you put your hands together and you feel that warmth and pressure, and you can easily train yourself to start feeling it further and further apart, and use that psi energy and, to make an energy ball or something like that.
The power of prayer. There was a guy who wrote a book on the power of prayer. And people healed whether they were prayed for and they knew it, or prayed for and they did not know it. Okay? So if I don't know your name, Chris, I will say, okay, the guy on the Dark Horse Podcast show, I'm praying for you. You see what I'm saying? I may not know your name. That energy that I am producing adjusts the tachyons so that when it hits you, by the time that signal hits E equals information, the energy hits you, the information goes to your well-being.
Right.
It's not psychosomatic because you didn't know I was doing it.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Happen. That sounds like remote viewing and having a random number and subconscious kind of.
So bear with me just 30 more seconds.
Oh, good.
There is.
We got more than that.
Okay, in Sedona, Arizona, and around the country, they're developing tachyon chambers where you go sit in a lazy boy and you are cured. And when you see the testimonials of the people that come out, they say the first thing, how did you feel? And they said, one of them said, I got my mind out of the way and my body healed. And they said, it's like being immersed in a well of love.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's insanely
Yes.
cool.
Okay, now here's the crazy part about it.
Everybody needs
So everybody
to build
wants
houses
this,
with
right?
this stuff.
It's like better than a hot.
Now there was an abductee by the name of Frank Stranges, Dr. Frank Stranges. He was an FBI agent who turned into a reverend. And Frank Stranges said over and over again, every time he was abducted, well, he wasn't really abducted, he was volunteered, and he went on to a spaceship. He wore glasses. He had to wear glasses because of his age. You know, everybody eventually has to wear glasses. And these are for reading. But anyway, so when he got on board the spaceship, he says, I can take my glasses off and I can see fine. I had 2015
Sheesh.
eyesight. Okay, but when he got off the ship, he had to put his glasses back on. His body just slowly reverted back and he had to wear his glasses again. Okay, so I read this about 4 years ago. Anyway, so I'm sitting here going, oh my God, this is what's happening. To make sure that your astronauts are healthy. Oops, I lost you. That your astronauts are healthy.
Thing is there.
Your camera died. I hear you.
Can't die. It's plugged in.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
I'll take care of it. Just we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. So,
I'll fix it.
I'll fix. Okay. So Frank, every time you get on, so if you have astronauts that are going through a long voyage and you want to maintain their health, what you do is you have tachyon chambers built inside the spaceship that keeps their cells healthy and animated.
Oh, wow.
So it reduces the inflammation. It reduces the problems of space travel because you're being enriched all the time
by the tachyons.
Wow. So you're talking to an alien abductee, right? And they say it was like they were angels. They were glowing.
Yes.
Blonde hair and white skin and blue eyes. And they just kind of like glowed. Their clothes would, and you're sitting there going, that's because they're enriched with tachyons.
Oh, that's really, wow.
It's in their ships. It's in their ships. Every ship, no matter how big or small, is flooding you with tachyons. And so what happens? The Pleiadians come out and they're all like peace and love and flowers in your hair. And it's like you're just high on tachyons, man. Get down here in the dirt with me,
Right.
Put dirt on your face, whatever. But these guys have thought the equation through. We're throwing people up into the ISS with no protection except for gamma radiation.
Right.
Okay, so we're not enriching their lives by them being there in that environment. We need to get tachyon transmitters and generators and focus in on these people in order that they remain healthier. Their immune systems are stronger. Their bones don't decay. You see what I'm saying? So if you walk into a tachyon chamber, and you can go on YouTube, and there are a lot of tachyon testimonials there. A tachyon chamber retails about $24,000. So
cheaper
average person, but it's passive. It's passive energy. It's energy that's already here, just like oxygen.
How does this work? Now, I'm sorry, a couple of questions on the audience. How to spell tachyon?
I got it right here.
You can look it up. All right, throw that in.
I just threw it in.
TACHYON. and type in behind it chambers on YouTube.
Okay.
Tachyon chambers. Our
And it's
testimony.
like a housing for our subconscious. I mean, I see all these parallels between our subconscious connections and what we're calling tachyons here.
Right. It is the essence. I'm not going to say it. Okay. Okay. On the old Model T or Model A car, you had to crank it by hand.
Right.
It was a hand starter, right? The tachyons in the entire internal combustion engine, tachyons is not necessarily the fuel. It is the starter that starts the thing. And then it just runs on its own after it gets started, you see. And that's how tachyons work. They start the process and then they maintain it because they're always in our environment.
Bridging connections.
It is one of the only energies that inundate us from beyond our universe. So it's coming directly from the afterlife. There's just no other question about it. There's no other universe that's emitting this. Okay. And
how do we know that?
We've got sensors. Okay. And okay, a lot of people are looking for the God particle.
Yes.
There is no such thing. It is a wave. And that wave is tachyons. That's it. Now, did tachyons make carbon? No, they didn't. But tachyons was the match that started the whole thing and maintained it as it inflated. Now, okay, our universe is not what you've been told. It's not a big black ball of goodness and Cheerios. It is a tube, is a donut. It's a spiral tube that is expanding. We live in that tube. And in the center of our universe, chronons are produced from our galactic universal sun. And tachyons are produced, we don't know where or how, but it's from the afterlife. And it comes in from the outside. When you get together, it creates particle decay and particle time.
Okay.
But our consciousness doesn't experience that. Because why? It's so closely related to tachyons that it just becomes symbolic. A psychic uses tachyons to go to another location to talk to spirits or have spirits come to them. That's why heaven is right here. Heaven's right here. Entities don't go anywhere. As long as they're in the tachyon field, they're right here. The whole flow of time is tachyons, stretched out to infinity. I mean, to our consciousness, infinity. So that's a galaxy. So just think of that galaxy and all the other galaxies in our entire universe is just floating around in this tube that's slightly expanding every hour. It expands 100 billion trillion light years, 100 billion light years. And it expands, but it's all immersed into tachyons. Every sentient life form is in the tachyon field. And this is how everything is balanced. This is what sparks the genetic code. This is what corrects illnesses in the mind. It is part and parcel of the mind, and it can be used as the mind. And it's the medium for which all thought forms use in order to have telepathy, mind-to-mind communication. All of that is in the tachyon field. It's not in RF. It's not in FM. It's not on your radio. It's not in your shortwave. It is all the way out there into this one thing that everyone wants to ignore because they never want to ask the question, where does it come from? And it's like, okay. So the people who have near-death experiences, the people who go into the tachyon chambers and come out, and the people who have talked to aliens, all have the same thing in common. They're in a tachyon field, and they all come back out, peace and love and joy. And it's like, what? Wait, okay, I went the long way around. To find this, and then you guys had chambers in Sedona, Arizona, and you're sitting there, and everyone's coming out in peace and joy.
People do love that Sedona.
They do.
They do.
do.
Big vortex out there.
Trek at some point
Big
ourselves.
Bucket list right there.
It is
Yeah, big
definitely on the
vortex.
bucket list.
Right.
We were talking to our friend Steve Auclair recently. I don't know if he's out there on YouTube's, but about going out there at some point. My sister's been a few times. Very interesting place. I mean, it seems like there are places in the earth where these things can happen. We call them things like ley lines, and they seem to be these sort of interdimensional gateways, if you will. Maybe the tachyons figure into that somehow, and how so?
The geodesic zones or the ley lines are fractures in the earth, and they can be 20 feet below or they can be right on top. It doesn't really make much difference. Every fracture point creates an electromagnetic field, which was called for a long time orgone energy, natural.
Oh,
energy.
yes.
Oh yeah, no,
Yes.
orgone.
Right.
I think a lot of us have seen. It's almost this kind of plasticky kind of thing. A lot of times they're made into pyramids, and there's different ingredients in there. There'll be some metals and some crystals, and they're kind of layered on top of each other.
Right. And all this is to amplify those vortexes, okay, which naturally give off this electromagnetic field. Now, if you have a wall or a building that sits on top of one, you'll see fractures in the foundation and up the wall. And everybody will write this off as, it's the building's settled. We poured the concrete a little fast and the building's just settling. No, below that building is a fracture line. And if you're a professional dowser, you can follow that line. And you can find them in your house. You can find them in your driveway. You can find them anywhere. And those lines create an orgone or geodesic field. And it's very similar to electromagnetic energy. If you want free energy, here's how you do it. Is through that energy, because that's focusing a natural phenomenon, a natural effect. Now, if you have electricity, let's say if I have an extension cord, and I plug the extension cord into the wall and plug it into a device, through that cord is an electromagnetic field. It creates it automatically. Your breaker box will create an electromagnetic field. Okay, now some of this
coiled around itself, especially if you involve a magnet.
Right. That's how speakers work. That's how speakers work. That's how radio receives signals. That's the whole thing. And the Moyen Shemet, that's fractal based. It's just not a thing in the air. It's all fractal based. Then you have the ability to focus in on that wavelength. Like sound is really 3D. It's not a wave. It's 3D. It's a 3D transmission. And our hearing has the ability to decipher that.
Yeah, the vibrations.
Right.
Yeah.
So here we are. If you're in the materialistic world, you're going to be hitting your head against the wall every time you turn around. It's like Sideshow Bob stepping on all those rakes in The Simpsons and gets hit in the head. Everywhere he turns, there's a rake and it hits him in the head.
Yes.
Well, that's where your materialism science stands. They're getting hit in the head, and they write the same books. That's why I said on another show, everybody runs back to Jung and Freud. Like, that was the end-all with-all. And it's like, BS, man. That's materialism looking at energy and saying, I think they're crazy. When if you're in energy and you look at materialism, you understand why you're in the material world. We're spirits in a material world. We're spirits having a human experience. We're not humans having a spiritual experience.
We try.
Yeah.
And once you get that properly adjusted in your head, you start to understand, the mysteries of life and what all these yogis and gurus were talking about. Matter is under the control of the mind. The energy is, what do they call it? What do they call that energy?
I don't know.
It's not mana. It wasn't mana energy. It's like, is that Vermana? Because that's the ship.
Right.
They called it like a mana.
Yeah.
On Easter Island, they called it mana. But in some of these other places, they called it mana. And that's that spiritual energy that just takes it, just goes on. And that's what, we need to get into, because we're well in the 21st century. And I don't have my flying cars. And I want my Brahmanas, I want my flying energy cars to fly around it. But you see, if you're from a society that looks at energy not only as a tool, but as a thing within itself, then, and you can equalize that frequency with your mind, you can train your mind for that, then you blend consciousness, and this is where we're going to go, consciousness and materialism combined. You see, and it's not coming from the brain, it's coming from our sensory perception of what we think.
I was going to say,
right.
It's a subtle awareness, right?
That's right.
Isn't it kind of what distinguishes person A from person B, who can feel the ghost on their shoulder or whatever, looking at them, that feeling of being looked at, and these other, sort of paranormal experiences we talk about. Right. Sometimes it's very subtle. It's just a opening up of the senses.
So we've gone, since I was a kid, to the sixth sense, all the way into saying it's tachyons and it's produced from outside of our universe. And E does equal I, whether you believe in it or not. Tachyons exist whether we believe in it or not. But what it really is living, loving energy that we have no control over.
I hear that love word come through a few times.
Yeah.
Is that the gas in the engine?
That is, yes, that is the gas in the engine.
Is that what fuels these things to exist? Our will, our loves.
So what happens, if you have a near-death experience and you go into the afterlife and you feel all that love and joy, and you say, I don't want to go back anymore. I don't want to go back to that human existence. They'll say, oh no, you've got to go back, but this is what's waiting for you. All this, love, peace, and joy. And so they go back. And when they have a near-death experience, Tom Sawyer is one of the classic cases. A car dropped on his chest and killed him. And when he came back, he said, I had to deal with all this pain. Daniel Brinkley did the same thing. He was struck by lightning. God struck him. Zeus struck him with lightning, and it took him 2 years just to walk and see again. But when they came back, they said, dude, you don't die. I was sitting there amongst other people in an auditorium, seeing the future. But when they came back, they had a totally psychological shift. Daniel Brinkley, Tom Sawyer, bad guys, being demanding, rough. And when they came back, they're as calm as a kitten. They're just easy to talk to. They're comfortable people. And Daniel has spent the rest of his life, or his purpose was to develop hospice for dying veterans. And that they told him that's your purpose. And he goes, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I have no idea how to do that. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll provide the way. Now that's a lot of trust from an ethereal creature standing there who's telling you about your destiny. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Wait a minute, when I go back, you're not going to be with me. And they say, oh no, we're with you all the time.
And that's where synchronicity maybe comes into play, right? And the synchronicities of life, and things just kind of fit all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, things start to click.
Yeah. Right.
And mesh,
and whether you're a medical doctor, there is a storm outside. My internet may slow down. There is a medical doctor, Raymond Moody, John Mack, Dolores Cannon, all broke the box. And they were laughed at, scorned at. Well, we burned witches too. So so that's why I'm saying
some of us still do.
Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Culture is quite a thing, right?
Talk about dreams. On Netflix, there's a new series called The Sandman.
We've seen it.
I used to collect the comic.
Yeah. Okay. Back in the day, I read a few of those comics myself. I didn't buy them all because I was growing up and I thought that was a little kiddie.
I had a nice collection at one point back in the 90s when they were new. Big fan of Neil Gaiman in general. loved
Yeah.
American Gods as well, but Sandman is awesome.
Series.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the whole idea is that, okay, if you watch that series, it gives you a little hint that monsters in your subconscious are created for you to have an experience, so you'll be braver in the waking world. And I think that's a very interesting viewpoint from the Sandman
Concept, yeah.
Most
But-
definitely. You got to
but-
conquering fear. It's right, like you said.
But those things exist
Courage.
on their own because they're supposed to exist so you have the experience.
That's right. Now, the American Indians always say, this is the dream world. We're in the dream world now.
Mm.
And when we die, we go into the real world. We wake up from the dream and we're in the real world. Now, the white man didn't understand that, okay? Because he was materialistic.
Mm.
And that's why our civilization is going to fail, because we have finite resources in a materialistic mindset, and it will destroy us because we'll print way too much money, we'll breathe way too much oxygen, we'll kind of cut down way too many trees. We're just extremists. I don't know of a materialistic person who's not extremist. Fast is not fast enough. High is not high enough. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole point is, maybe we are in this dream, this particle, digital world.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a dream. Okay, so let me just say this. I'm real. Okay, well, I'm a materialistic person. I'm sitting here. I'm in my material. You're in your world, your materials, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the watcher who's watching this program sees us as a digital memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So we're
Digital
creating
zeros.
our digital ghosts in our digital heaven by having this program.
That's really trippy when you really think about
Okay.
that.
So I'm real. Okay, I'm real, but I'm in a box here. I'm in a box that doesn't exist. It's digital. It's a form of reality all its own. In a heaven, all of its choosing.
Mm.
Because there's other paranormal programs right along with mine. Right along with this one is like what, 5 or 6 or 10 others. So it's a digital ghost, a memory of a material person, reality.
Mm-hmm.
So subconsciously, the collective subconscious of the entire globe is connected. If we just know how to connect to it, plug in.
Right.
And that's what telepathy
That's
is.
the trick, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this is, so we're unraveling the energy of love and time. Oh, time doesn't exist, it's a construct. We're unraveling love and existence.
Right.
And the rest of it will be everything else.
You had a comment out here. Actually, it sounds kind of related from Josh. Hey, Josh Dixon, some really good comments out there. And speaking of that digital bit, he says, "What about AI computer? They sent up to circulate a major satellite, like a moon, billions of dollars, and it took over an actual person and started attacking the satellite with missiles. And I think it hit it. Mission Control designed it." To think for itself. So once it was in space, it was on its own. So it brings up AI, right? We're talking about digital ghosts, and which we are right now, creating our own digital ghost, which will just be circulated around the interwebs and whatnot, and be a memory in the people's minds. What do you think? Where does AI fit into that with the subconscious?
This is subconscious. Try as you might, and I'm gonna this is not your fault. It's not my fault. It's just the way our genetics are designed and our frame of mind is designed. Man and woman can only create themselves. Psychologically, subconsciously, animatronically. Go look up the Atlas on YouTube. We can only recreate ourselves. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
God, the creator, can only replicate himself. Okay.
Okay.
So a solar system, the Earth, the sun, the moon, all that stuff,
Mhm.
and you look at an atom, it's exactly the same.
Right.
Yes.
And that's what I think of when you say fractals, and it's like
The
patterns
fractal
that
geometry, right? The repetitive pattern comes
Renee.
from the original intelligence to create it. Now, it created carbon, and that is the base material that runs through the entire universe.
Right.
And from that carbon, you are created to have an interface, a biological interface to your consciousness, which is energy, pure energy, just energy. Okay. So now they're creating this goes beyond AI. This is a calculating computer made of human neurological cells growing in a petri dish, connected to a computerized board, and they can teach it to play Pong.
Oh, wow.
So they're creating the spiritual computer interface 100 times faster than AI could ever be.
And what drives it? Is it simply the thought of it, or do you need to have an emotion attached?
No.
And I say that because it seems like when we talk to the afterlife, when we talk to somebody who's passed on, emotions are the communication. Emotions
I'll tell you what.
symbols and that sort of thing are what's pushed to a person, a medium that's talking to somebody, who's passed on, has crossed the rainbow bridge, if you will.
Right.
It seems like they speak in emotional terms.
I'll tell you why. Because there is no universal clock system. There's no universal clock system. So when I talk to psychics, let's just say psychics, I've spent the last 10 years, swear, trying to compute time and events, or time and emotions. So when I ask someone, like, let's say angels or guides or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or I ask a psychic, will this happen on Thursday? Okay, they can't tell me. Thursday doesn't exist in the afterlife. Neither does 12 o'clock. Neither does 1 o'clock.
True. Yes.
There's no concept of that. But what there is are events and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So they can tell me if I'm going to graduate from college, because why? I have such an emotional outburst. They can see it in their tachyon world.
Mm.
But they can't tell me when I'm going to graduate. They just know that I'm going to be so happy when I do.
Well, it's that linear time thing, right? Linear time
Right.
is really a human experience, which I'm going to bring up another one of Josh's comments from earlier. I didn't get a chance to. He said, do you believe, and I forget the term, the existence of a past, present, future living harmoniously?
Yeah.
And that is a thing, right? People talk about this. We've talked about it on the show before. All these things might be happening at the same time, which is a hard thing to wrap one's head around, but it may be why the subconscious can reach out, see the past, and see the Akashic records of what's going to happen, what happened, and all the events in between. We're subtly connected to all of it in a certain way if it's all happening at the same time.
Right. There is not a priority. There is no priority. Just because you're here is not necessarily a priority for tomorrow or yesterday. You see.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that mankind lives about 100 years, let's just say, or less. And so that's a very small piece of time.
They said this morning on the news that our life expectancy, whatever, is 78% is 78.
Yeah.
Yeah, 78.
Yeah, for women, men die at 71. No, because they get nagged to death. That's my joke.
I
Yeah, women live longer because they nag their husbands to death, and then they have no one to nag, so then they die because they get bored. So anyway, that's
you can only mow so many lawns.
You can only mow. That's right. That's for sure. In my day, it was like you can only drink so many vodka martinis, and we did our best to drink them all. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the ladies did a good job with those as well.
We ran Russia dry a couple of times, I think, in my day. But you know, that was the Cold War. That was, you know. But anyway, we're still in the industrial Cold War, the military industrial complex Cold War. So you just picture Cold War, and
we're still fighting each other.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Industrial espionage is the highest thing right now. Man, you just wouldn't believe it. You just wouldn't believe it.
It's ridiculous.
I like when the government gets involved, though, in these other programs that, you know, are outside or fringe, and, you know, things like remote viewing or hemisync. You know, CIA put somebody through the hemisync program to have out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
And, you know, the guy comes back and says, yeah, you know what? Yeah, life is not what we think. And it's right there. You know, it's publicly visible. And, makes you think for a second, right? So how does that all tie back to the paranormal? Well, what is the paranormal? We're trying to see things that, you know, can't be explained rationally, that don't fit into the 3D matrix. We're trying to talk to an afterlife oftentimes, or so know that there's proof of one. We want to know what happened to our relatives, our families, our friends that have passed on to the nether, and that sort of thing. And we want to know they're okay. And is there, you know, more than meets the eye with this, you know, very limited view of what existence really is. Like we mentioned, the waves, the radio waves, and all the different frequencies within the electromagnetic spectrum that are passing right through us right now as we speak.
Right.
Yet we're not even aware of it. We don't see it. We don't feel it. We can't, you know, you get nothing from it.
So your cell phone must be half and half. It must be in the ethereal world, which is microwaves, and in the material world, because it's in your hand, and you can interface with it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're the same thing. What do you think? What do you think they call it? A cell phone? Are you selling it, or is it just one part of an entire organism called a cell?
Yeah, it could be.
Our subconscious, the internet was based upon the neural network of the brain. And it got to a point to where we could, at one time, kill the internet. We could do it, but not now. Now it's limitless. And if we blew up New York, I would still have the internet. If we blew up Los Angeles, I'd still have the internet.
That's right.
If we blew up every major city in America, I'd still have the internet. I could be in Podunk, New Jersey, or Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and still have the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, and there's certainly just a bunch of different connections. Yeah, you can take a piece and still have the whole for the most part.
Well, let me go back about 500 years. Everybody knew 500 years ago you'd fall off the earth if you sailed too far.
It's flat.
And everybody knew 100 years ago a car shouldn't go over 40 miles an hour because it'd rip your head off. 1906, right? 1906, so 100 and some odd years ago, we invented the airplane. In 1906, in 1947 or 45, 47, we had the first jet engine. In 40 years or less, we went close to breaking the sound barrier. In less time than that, we went to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And in less time than that, we found the cure to polio.
Right.
And in less time than that, we found a way to blow up the entire freaking world.
Right. Which is about the first thing we did with that.
And we're so proud of ourselves.
You know, it wasn't lighting up cities with power and power grids. It was about, hey, let's see what kind of bomb we can make.
That's right. That's right. Okay, now, because we're so freaking smart, the United States Air Force, amongst others, are putting aluminum in our skies to reflect the sun's heat back out into space.
Yes. Actually, the aluminum was something I wanted to bring up because a certain clip you sent me about the aluminum.
Then I saw on the Weather Channel of this big red, looked like a red tide. It looked like red tide. it was a big red cloud that was swooping over Seattle and Idaho and Nebraska, and it was aluminum particulates, the size of baby powder, that they were dumping over the Rocky Mountains to reflect the sun.
It's a bunch of dumbasses.
And so the rainwater has aluminum, like 20,000 units per million. It's almost undrinkable.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Animals are drinking
And
this.
it has grown.
It's awful.
Our plants are drinking this.
Like 2000
Terrible. We're drinking
to 2022.
Yeah.
I think it was something like, I don't know, 400% or maybe more.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't have to go much further back to there was none.
That's right. There should be zero. Maybe some carbon particles from all the carbon pollution, but it's zero. Carbon is very low to the ground, but it should be zero. Now, here's the other thing. Everyone talks about fluoride in the toothpaste and fluoride in the water, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's fluoride in your Frosted Flakes. There's fluoride in almost every commercial cereal you're going to buy.
They're messing with our cereal.
They're using aspartame and
that's a high crime around.
And fluoride as pesticides now to kill pests. Okay, I just saw a commercial about fluoride, and I grew up in a college that had chlorine in their water. And you put chlorine in swimming pools to kill bacteria. So think of what fluoride is doing to your gut.
Right.
It's
We have
killing the bacteria.
water, we need to do something.
We have well water.
But
turns my hair green.
Yes.
It's weird.
The nitric acid, the nitrates in well water now have gotten to such a level it's almost undrinkable. You shouldn't really be drinking it.
Yeah, right. And people have enough of it. Yeah. Like most people don't. If they can afford to, they're going to buy bottled water,
right?
Which of course is leading to the other problem, which is now we got all this plastic. It's in the seas. It's in landfills and all these things. And now it's in our bodies. It's in our food. It's in our animals. It's everywhere. Just like aluminum.
Go buy yourself a Berkey. They're not a sponsor. I'm sorry, but go buy a Berkey water filtration system.
Berkey, like
Berkey.
Seeds.
Huh?
The same as the seed manufacturer, Berkey?
I don't know if they're related or not. But anyway, the Berkey water will take chlorinated water and make it pure. And it's just filtration system. It's just gravity-fed filtration. And you can put any kind of water in there, pond water, sea water, whatever water you got, and it will come out pure. Now, you could boil water, you can, reverse osmosis water, you can do distillation water, you can do all that stuff. But you start taking out, and the Berkey also takes out several minerals out of the water that you really need, like calcium, things like that. So you still have to take your supplements. But what I'm saying is
drink milk. Drink milk.
No, milk's not. No, milk is, no, that's another story.
It's made for another animal. But
yeah, it's made for another animal, and we drink way too much of it as humans anyway. And this is lead to high cholesterol and weight gain because we're not burning it up. It's a fat that we don't burn up. Now, I just want to say this.
Something if we could get like breast milk by the gallon in Walmart or something.
No, there is jet fuel in breast milk. Human breast milk. There is jet fuel.
Good Lord.
How? Why?
You breathe it in. You get it into your respiratory system. You pass it into the blood veins, and it comes out your mother's milk. Read the last real analysis on breastfeeding, and you'd be shocked on the junk that comes out of mother's milk. It's not processed. Look at all your mothers, before they get pregnant. They're drinking Cokes. A lot of them are smoking. They're putting junk into their system. And then it doesn't filter out. And then you have a baby. Like, you remember those old crack babies? As soon as they're born, they need crack because they're just wired to the hilt.
Yes.
Yeah, because they received everything that was in the mother, through the placenta, through the blood. So You are what you eat, man. I mean, your children
I-
are what you eat.
It seems like a dying animal, right? The AI is growing, and the biology that created it is diminishing. It's diminishing itself. It's taking itself out of the picture.
That's right. Now, let's say in 1,000 years from now, when they're watching this on YouTube, Dr. Lynch predicts that there will no longer be any humans because we've just polluted and become so stupid with all the nitrates and the phosphates and the aluminum and all this other crap, the mercury, that affects our brains. We just dumb ourselves down.
Lead. Yeah.
Genetically infused where we cannot reproduce a decent human brain cell, let alone a human cell in the body. So cancers will be on the rise. Cysts will be on the rise. You'll be unable to purify the body. Now you have blood transfusions. So, the old day of the vampire is going to drastically disappear because there won't be any more food for the vampire because it'll all be tainted. Okay, think of an alcoholic. Not think of an alcoholic, but just think of someone who drinks alcohol all the time. Replaces water with alcohol. They're just poisoning the sugar toxination in your system because our DNA is riddled with sugar. Our DNA craves it.
Yes.
Right.
So when we get a hold of sugar, the endorphins go up. Okay, this is what I was trying to say about the tachyon chambers. Somehow the tachyon fields create endorphin reactions in the brain, a neurochemical reaction in the brain to make you feel love. And you said, what is love? Everyone knows it's chemical, but now it's energy. Love is energy. It's not neurochemical. Neurochemical is the result
of it. Yes.
Of it. Not it by itself. A match, the ashes of a match is the remnant of the fire.
Right.
And the sulfur. Yeah.
So the endorphins is.
Well, yeah, that it made me want to ask when we talked about love, and like, could you love something so much, like an object, just anything, like this little vape here, right? Nicotine vape.
Yeah.
Speaking of addictions, could you love it so much that you can move it on a table, right? So is this powerful enough to move an object? Is it love that can create telekinesis, or is it some other form of energy manipulation? And how does that happen? Is it the tachyons?
Yeah, it's the tachyons. Is the okay? In the old days of telegraph, you had a wire that connected the telegraph stations, and the signal went down this wire, and that's what tachyons are. They're the signal. It's the wire that
connects them.
Connects the signals. So one time, I went into this clothing store, and I think it was Macy's or Lord & Taylor's. I don't know if they have them in your area, but
we do. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I would go into the tie selection in the men's department because I'm always looking for a decent tie.
Hard to find, yeah.
Yeah, and so my daughter goes, how do you know which tie to select? Well, I have a pretty good fashion sense, so I kind of have a color in mind. And I just said, kind of off the cuff, I said, well, if it calls to me, I'll buy it. And a lot of times when I go shopping, I don't have an interest in what they have, but there'll be one thing that I will notice, and I said, that's got my name on
it. Do the same thing.
It's called to me. Sure. Yeah. I didn't project, oh, I wanted that tie or I wanted that color.
Have it, though.
I just have a color in mind to go with this shirt. So I say, oh, and then it's like, it's sitting right there. And my subconscious, my conscious mind locks in on it like radar. And it goes, oh my God, I just got to have that, So I grab it and I run up to the cash register and buy it. And I'm the happiest guy on the planet. Well, I took this scientific theory bigger. Okay, let me tell you a little story here. It's called parapsychological research you can do it's safe to do on your own. Okay, you can do this at home. I want you to sit down at your kitchen table. Imagine something that you would like. Okay, a new briefcase, a tie, maybe a new shirt or something like that. Now, I had selected a used clothing and retail shop. Okay, it was a used stuff. And I said, okay, so I'm going to put this out there into the universe. And I wrote it down. Sometimes I wrote it down, sometimes I wouldn't. I just said, I need a new briefcase, or I need this design for my computer, a case for my computer in this design.
Mm-hmm.
I would put that out there. I kind of almost picture it in my mind. And that's how it kind of works. So when I was in the area, I didn't do it every day. When I was in the area, I'd go by this used retail shop and I would look around. And guess what?
It was there.
It was
there.
Yeah.
For $1. It was like almost free.
Yeah.
So I said, that's impossible. That can't work. Okay. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this once a week. I'll pick a day, maybe Friday or Saturday, and I'll go down and I'll just browse around and I'll look for something. And a lot of times I would sit down a week, if not 2 weeks in advance, and say, I would like to have a new pad for my desk, a desk pad.
Mm-hmm.
I want a new one or a slightly used one. Okay. And sure enough, a week later, it was there. $3, like nothing. It's like, okay, so I go down to the real business depot, the office depot or whatever, and they're like $50. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, so this goes on. I mean, it goes on to where I'm looking for certain types of shirts. I'm looking for certain types of cufflinks, certain types of suits, and they're there. They're there. And okay, and then.
So you're manifesting.
Exactly what I was
saying.
I'm putting the cogs into motion of the universe to supply me with what I think I need. Not want, I think I need it. And then
do you do any sort of visualization, like maybe you already have it, that kind of thing?
Yes. Okay.
A lot of
no, I don't do that. I don't do the follow through because that would take the experiment. If I think I already have it, then why would I need it? It cuts it off.
Right.
So then I go through this, weekly little suggestion in my mind, like, hey, I think I need a new. Okay. Thanksgiving was coming along, and I wanted one of those electric knives. Those electric knives, and I was going to use it to cut foam. You can use it to cut foam for some of my equipment, and so I was going to buy one of those electric knives and use it as a foam cutter or Thanksgiving because I always wanted one. Okay, I just thought I needed it,
Sure.
And so I had this place in mind. I said I wanted at this secondhand shop on the such date or such time. Well, anyway, I go down there. And I looked, and I couldn't find it. I was like, oh my God, maybe this is all screwed up. Maybe I'm wrong. So I drive back home. I ask a guide. I had a really good guide at that time. And I said, I'm looking for an electric knife. And I wanted it to be at that particular secondhand shop. And I said, I couldn't find it. And he says, it's there. Go back. I said, you got to be kidding me. He says, no, go back. It'll be right there on top. And sure enough, my God, my subconscious mind, my conscious mind, I walked right in that store, and there it was in this brand new box, never been used, sitting right on top of the shelf.
Wow. Yeah.
And it blew me away. The universe became compliant to things that I needed. And my mind wouldn't lock onto it, even if it was there. I just didn't, you see what I'm saying? It's, okay. You think that's weird. When I stopped doing that, everything I was looking for, the shirts, the cufflinks, the ties, the suits, disappeared.
Mm.
And I never saw them again.
Wow.
So when I go now, today, I'll go to a secondhand shop, and I'm looking around, just for knickknacks, and there's nothing there. I'll walk out because I didn't need anything that was there. But I didn't ask for it. Now, this is what the secret's all about.
Right.
But the secret is more than that. But when you stop, it stops. The gears of the universe change. There's a song by V and V Nation, and it's called Nova. It's on YouTube. I suggest everybody listen to it.
How's it spelled? What is it?
V like in victory, V in capital N like in nation, and then another V in V Nation.
Nova.
Yeah, Nova. And in the song it says, I created the world with my eyes open. And it lasted for just a little while, then other worlds were created. And there's an old Hindu saying, never create the world with your eyes open, because you'll believe in the illusion that's in front of you, and it won't last very long. So when he says that, I created the world with my eyes open, was saying that I have an intention that I want to put on the world. But because there's like 8 billion people on the planet, they all have the same intention to create the world in their order.
Mm-hmm.
With their imaginations. So it gets kind of convoluted. For me to run this little experiment was just extravagance. It was just not arrogance, but extravagance of saying that this could happen. Until I stumbled across Dr. Emoto's Messages in Water.
Okay.
And if you pray into the water,
Yes.
it will change because it overrides the quantum state of the water and becomes something new. And love changes it the most.
I like that. There's a quote I like from a book I read by Paulo Coelho. He's a pretty famous author. You wrote a fable-like book called The Alchemist. And one of the quotes in there, and it's repeated through the book here and there, is, and when you want something, all of the universe conspires to help you achieve it.
It is,
which I love, and it's so true and simple. And there it is. It's like when you really want something, the universe itself seems to conspire, and I like that word, conspire, to achieve.
It's designed to achieve that. It is designed that way.
Exactly. It's about a shepherd, and it goes on, and there's some wonderful references in there.
Yeah.
To history. If you're not familiar with the book yourself, Michael, I think you'd enjoy it. It's a great book.
Yeah.
I recommend it to anyone.
So the guru, the Hindu guru, the prophets, the psychics, the soothsayers, they deal in energy and emotion. Your medical surgeon down here is cutting you open because he believes in the material world, like a material girl.
So I keep thinking that Madonna singing the song.
There was a time when surgeons would play music in the operating theaters so they could help them kind of focus. And then that kind of went out of style. But one of the main songs they played was pop, and Madonna songs came up all the time. And then Weird Al Yankovic made that song "Cutting Like a Surgeon" instead of like I'm a virgin.
Yes.
Cutting like a surgeon for the very first time. That's hilarious. But
it is.
I think Slayer would probably be more appropriate.
Yeah, Slayer.
In a way.
Yeah. So you have these people in the paranormal world. I talk to them all the time. There's a group down in Springfield, Missouri, I was talking to, and they were telling me all this about their equipment and all this other stuff. I said, well, you're pretty busy. That's a lot of equipment to be pulling out. and putting back. And I saw these other guys not very far from me, and they pull out all this equipment. They have this break van, and like they pull all this equipment out, and they want to be like Jason and Grant. And I said, man, that's just tech. You're trying to find energy. Look for energy and its effect on the material world, such as objects moving, such as being touched, feeling depressed, feeling like you're going to cry. The emotional states.
That's right.
You can't get that.
Good things to log, and they're very good things to log, just like moon states and what
Phases,
moon phases. Thank you. Your own emotional and physical state is just as valid as any of those other data entries you might be keeping in your logbook.
That's right.
Good point.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, some people can't feel any of that, so they have to go by those gadgets.
That's right, because some of us are just not wired for that. I mean, my brain is not wired for that. But I got to trust my equipment. I do have a theory. I'm looking for energy. I'm not looking for material. I'm looking what affects my material world.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's energy, not matter. And so everyone has a different viewpoint. But how my team made the most advanced stabs into the paranormal was just throw out. I mean, clinically, just throw out all the emotion, all the drama, because you can't prove it. A psychic cannot prove their impressions in their brain, but you know that it's there. Okay?
Yeah, you can't recreate the experiences so easily either, which defies the scientific method. We were talking about that last week.
Yeah,
that came up. It's like, how do you do it? You want to try to be scientific, but you really can't be. And even if you really scientific, it's how do you replicate that moment, that exact moment, to see if you have the same effect?
Okay, because once you're trained in the material world, like a material girl, and then you have to switch your thinking to energy, because this materialism doesn't make sense. Okay, this is the joke I tell at most of my conferences. I moved into a new house, and every time I plug in my fan into the outlet, it works. How did that electricity get in there? I'm really thinking that there's something up with that electricity thing. How did it get into my house? Why is it there? And why does it have a physical effect on my fan?
Right.
Magic.
Oh yeah, it's got to be witches or gargoyles or elves or fairies. It's got to be one of those.
A little alchemical for
It
sure.
could be banshees. I don't know, but that fan comes on. I said, so I have electricity in my house, and I don't understand it. Where's it coming from? I have electricity in my body, and they just now found the neural nets in most of the brains. It's called the glass brain. You can look it up on YouTube. The glass brain. It tells you all the neural networks in your brain, but it tells you nothing about consciousness. It tells you how the energy is transferred. Okay, they don't know what kind of energy it is. It's bioelectric. It's biochemical. Really? What if it's just tachyons? Duh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we did an experiment recently, and I'm going to share that with you now.
Oh yes. Wilson. I call him Scully, but I'm not allowed to. Yeah, he gets mad when I do that. It's Scully. Scully is Mulder.
All right, so this is a model of a human skull. Now we would have preferred to use an actual human skull, but as you know, they're hard to get. They're illegal in some states, and they're very expensive when you can get them. But this one is about as close as you can get. It's a medical model, and its skull cap is removable. So we used this on a paranormal investigation at a place in Vermont called Wilson Castle, hence the name Wilson, which is a little bit like the Tom Hanks movie, Wilson. And inside the skull, if you take the cap off, what I've got in here is a variety of crystals. You can see them all laid in.
Yes.
It is thought that crystals can contain spirit, and
Like
spirit
you're
can
saying, yeah.
utilize crystals, to manifest itself, right?
Harnesses their energy.
Below those crystals, and there are many in here that I've laid in here, a whole variety of them, for different needs and intentions and whatnot, to make it comfortable for spirit to manifest. There is a very powerful magnet. Now, this is an I believe it's F52 level magnet. This is a crazy magnet. If you have a pacemaker, you're basically not supposed to handle this magnet. You use gloves, supposed to keep it away from your heart, keep yourself a certain amount of away, distance wise. And that's in the base of the skull. Okay, so that's all fine and dandy. That seems like a lot of lore. People like John Dee kept skulls and heads, and through history, people have kept the heads, especially with a working jaw, for spiritual communications, right? This goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. That's really not all that unique, right? If you study the occult in any way, those skulls turn up over and over. Now, magnetism.
If your boss is cutting people's heads off, you have an easier way of accessing those skulls.
You don't have to go on eBay.
You don't have to go. No, you have to dig them up.
More, but
yeah, no,
you don't have to hunt the web for human skulls or dig any graves.
Right.
Now, what was the effect of this? Right, so it all looks neat and that's fine and dandy, and again, kind of a certain amount of creep factor there. Did it work? Did it do anything? Yes, it did. When we did have spiritual communications, it came in waves. Now, the magnet itself, I believe, to have a steady flow of magnetism. It throws EMF. I can hold a K2 meter to this or a Mel meter, and you will see the EMF spike right when you start to get close to it, because it naturally throws EMF. It is its own sort of EM pump, as they sell in the market, but it's quiet, has no moving parts, and it's powerful. What happened in our recordings? What happened? What was the data that was presented? Well, it seemed like spirit came in and it would just hit it, and like a wave, all the K2s would go off in the room. Everything would happen. It would stretch out, and then it would pull back. During some of those moments of it stretching out, that's where we got our EVPs. It seemed to be breaking through. So, there it is. It's harnessing the energy. It does seem to work in a wave-like fashion. Like it was breaking through. It's utilizing what you got, and then it spreads it out, and then there's the communications, and then it kind of pulls back. That sort of thing, which scientifically doesn't really line up, right? Because this should be consistent. There should be a consistent amount of EMF that is given by the magnet.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was anything but consistent.
Right. Well, if you do an EEG on the brain, it is electroencephalogram, but the whole idea is that it's monitoring the electromagnetic output of certain parts of the brain. Okay. So your brain is transmitting the same as that magnet. Your body is a ferritic magnet in motion, because we have a lot of iron in our blood.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Enough to make what would be like a nail.
More than that. But in biology, you don't need that much to create a field. And as long as your heart is circulating, a field is generated. Okay, so as long as your energy is circulating in your body, your consciousness is transmitting and receiving. So that would be normal. That magnet would be normal. Now, here's the problem that I have, is that every consciousness, every ghost, every entity that comes through our environment, no matter how spectral or not, moves electrons. And there are guys out there with EMF Jacob's ladders pumping electrons in the air, trying to get an amplified EMP. No, EMP. It's not EDP. It's EMP.
Okay, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Yeah, an EMP is electromagnetic pulse, and that is the arrangement in the mind to create a word. Your recorder records it in an electromagnetic sense, not in a verbal sense. It's just being translated that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an EMP. There's no voice connected with it. If it was a voice, you'd be able to hear it auditorily with your own ears, but that's not the way it is. It's an EMP. It's electromagnetic pulse.
Mm-hmm.
The pulse is 2 or 3 words, and it's gone. That pulse has got to go to that magnetic field that you have in that skull. There's where you get your waffling, because the pulse interferes with its field. Okay, but if you pump electrons into the atmosphere, that can be used against you in a court of law or anywhere else in the paranormal, because those are free electrons, is free energy for it to manipulate as it sees fit.
Mm-hmm.
You see,
Right.
So you don't need to give it more. It already has tons of tachyons, and they can start to manipulate whatever you want. Your brain, your thoughts, your imagination. It can deprive you or excite you. It just depends on how you want to go about it. Those that are more wired or more prone can receive
Hypnagogic state we talked.
Exactly. There you go.
Or like to circle back.
That was a nice circle back though, because
Sort of. Yeah.
And
Totally.
there's thousands of ways of doing it. You can put a candle up in front of you and stare at the candle. Put yourself in a state of hypnosis. You can go do transcendental meditation. You could have astral projection, try to leave your body. A lot of people try that. Or you can go to a professional and they can hypnotize you straight out.
Mm.
And I tell you what, when I wake up and when I go to sleep, but mainly when I wake up, I always, once in a while, will hear my voice called. Like, hey, Michael, wake up.
really,
Or something like that. And one time I heard a voice saying, are you okay? And I answered him back saying, no, my nose is all stuffed up. I got sinus problems, So they're really interested in your welfare. The whole universe is interested in your welfare, and it wants you to be healthy and happy. It's just designed that way. But no, we're so smart, we pollute the environment and eat bad junk.
We do the opposite of what the
so
message is.
awful.
We
We put our bodies too, and I, for one, am guilty of that. So
Yeah, I mean, I love M&Ms, and I love red dye number 2 just as much as anybody. And
number 2 is my favorite.
number 2 is like
Really?
crayon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But,
oh yeah, I know.
I'm just as guilty. I'm not saying I'm a saint or anything, but I can tell you, man, it's gotten off the deep end. It's way off the deep end.
It really is.
Yeah.
Joshua says our brains are the universe, and that's an interesting way to put it.
That's true.
You can say the universe is everything outside of me, and you can also say the universe is everything inside of me, right?
If you look at the
That
brain,
can become a mantra. If you
if you look at the brain and you go all the way out to the edge of the universe and you turn around and look back, you'll see the universe is designed exactly like the neural network in our brain. The same fractal geometry exists on no matter what level you're talking about. Now, the only place it's hard is I only have like 23,000 pairs of DNA. Okay, I'm like the short guy on the totem pole. I got little DNA to work with. Now you take somebody else like a Gray or Pleiadian or whatever, they've got 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 pairs of DNA. Hell, they should be telepathic from day one. I mean, right off the bat, they should be telepathic.
Maybe they are.
They are. I know they are. But anyway, so the whole thing is for us to reach. Now, okay, we talk about cures, and we talk about sleep and dreams and opening the conscious mind up. But now we can talk about a few other things, like the hypnagogic state, and how we can become more efficient. How they have become more efficient, and spacefaring people, is that they became spiritual. And in spirituality, you get telepathy. You get tachyons that preserve your health. You start you start being one with the universe. Okay, so 365 light years away is the star cluster, the Pleiades. Well, I can be on Earth and have let's say I can be on Earth and have a conversation with them in real time, no delay. We're having a conversation just like you and I are having a conversation. If you believe your mind can do that in a tachyon field. But if you're using radio waves, it'll take you 365 years to go one way. The Earth will have changed 100,000 years by the time you get the signal back. There's no way to do it. Space travel requires telepathy. Your genetic code requires it for you to go into space to make it efficient. So if the universe is like the brain, you've got to bridge the gaps in the neural net in order to make it work. You've got to reach a level of spirituality, or we'll never get into space. If you think the International Space Station is resolving any issues, zero, zilch.
Well, it's about to fall out of the sky anyway. It's
the Japanese have got, or the Chinese have got their own up there now. The Russians are building another one, and they're not doing. The only spiritual or psychic research was during Apollo 17. I think
Edgar
Mitchell did those tests, and when he got back, he developed the Institute for Consciousness.
Yes.
Which those guys are so
free
in the dark ages. Yeah, he built the whole thing, and they're still in the dark ages. I don't like to talk to them. But anyway,
yeah.
Between them and the Rhine Institute,
he passed.
They're still looking at materialism to solve our issues.
Right.
We don't have enough DNA to solve our issues. We don't have enough smarts.
No, we don't.
Smarts to solve our issues. So we have given the power of the people, have given what I call rogue scientists, to put aluminum in the air and fluoride in our pesticides without a word of rebuttal. We'll never reach the spirituality if they keep cutting our frontal lobes off.
Right. Well, maybe that's intentional. There's a lot of people too say there is a certain amount of conspiracy behind that to keep people dumbed down to some degree, because if they woke up, they probably would make government work for them, not to get political. And it doesn't matter what side you're on. But,
right.
May put it toward people instead of, defense contracts or whatever, wherever that money disappears to. Things of that nature.
Some people don't want to know what it goes to, but at the same time, we have no control over it. That's
exactly.
We're rendered helpless.
We're talking about $20 million to something like Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, it's only a drop in a bucket. It's nothing.
Nothing.
$2 million. Yeah.
When I'll throw this out there just for fun, but Donald Trump was going to build a wall on the border.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't put it in the budget, so he had to go out looking for extra money. So he goes to the Pentagon and says, "Remember that money I loaned you for all those black projects? Can I have $5 billion of that back?" And the Pentagon goes, "Hell no, man. Well, he's the commander-in-chief of the military."
Right.
And the Pentagon told him, "Get lost.
What money?
Yeah, what money? My hand's out for some more."
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we hear about so little. I find it amusing that they talk about the $20 million in Skinwalker and Bob Winkler.
We're talking about billions. We're talking about billions.
It had to be like way more behind that, and certainly behind the initiatives, right? And a simple $20 million.
That's the other thing too. Remember back in the old days? I mean, back when the world was young and martinis were only $2.50 at lunch. Ronald Reagan put out. They were at lunch.
Back in my day.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in my day, I hate to say that I'm the old guy now, but I am. Okay, back in my day, Ronald Reagan put out I forgot, was it 40 billion or $50 billion for the space laser stuff?
Oh,
yeah.
Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah, Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars, SDI,
Exactly.
Space Defense Initiative, or whatever that was, SDI. Okay. That money never stopped. It's still in the budget. We are giving that money out every year since that day. You know how many laser platforms we've got? Do you know how many laser platforms we've got orbiting the Earth right now?
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
I don't know. Wasn't
A
it
lot.
under the guise of like, okay, besides being defense, we can shoot down asteroids or meteorites and that
Right.
kind of thing? Interestingly enough, I know this
yes.
month coming up, the Armageddon, like the movie Armageddon, like probe that we put out there to blow up the test blowing up an asteroid
Yeah.
is going to arrive, I think, on the 26th, if I read that properly in the news story. And they're going to attempt that now. I know they launched it, I don't know how many months ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's been a while getting to its target, but that's actually going down this month. I think NASA is going to live stream it, actually, because that's the day and age we live in. We're going to
Destruction on real TV. That's
how the hell
great.
they live
You
stream
see
from
that every day
from
on
an
the news,
asteroid.
But
But-
yeah,
Again, I'm from a time when the martinis were $2.50 at lunch too. So
tell you, man, I did more.
fine.
I did more stuff on the back of a napkin during lunch with my martinis than I ever did on a proposal or spreadsheet. I mean, that's just the way it was. The old boy network. You
Yeah.
wrote it down on a napkin, and you said, "This is, this is the equation that's going to work."
Doing, yep.
Yeah, and you pass it off, and then money comes rolling in. I mean,
right.
it was the Cold War, and you didn't want the Russians to have the latest, greatest stuff. So they rounded up the best and the brightest, of us mainly. And if you weren't an abductee, you were a nerd or a geek, dreaming up the next Armageddon, the world's end, because we could do it at the time. We never thought anybody would take us seriously, but they did. And whether you call it the Department of Theoretical Physics in the Pentagon, where a lot of this money goes, they sit down and they hammered that out, and they put it in nose cones of airplanes, and they had particle beam weapons everywhere. I mean, when Russia came out and said they had a hypersonic missile, we were just laughing our asses off.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing. To the speed of light, I said, it's a joke. And then all of our scientists come out. I was one of them. And I said, it's going to break down. We don't have any composite materials, even carbon fiber, that can withstand the speed that they're claiming to go.
Right.
Even if you're in space and there was no, coming back down, it explodes because it's moving so fast, it just blew up in the air.
Right.
Back in the day, someone asked me one time about a nuclear explosion, and I said, what the cool thing about a nuclear explosion is? And they said, no, what? And I said, the EMP that you get when it explodes.
Yeah.
Because that just fries all your batteries and disrupts all your radio transmissions. And they go, that's great. We need to have a few of those in space. Oh, yeah. There's a couple over Moscow right now. That James Bond movie was not a fiction. It was not a fantasy. We had EMPs. We still have them up there as a first strike capability.
They say the military is like 30, 40 years ahead of all.
Oh, no.
technology.
They're 800 to 1,000 years ahead. They're
You think
800 to 1,000 years ahead because of the reverse technology, the reverse engineering that we've got, plus what they gave us.
Right.
So
it is scary.
let me just tell you a little bit about their influence. They can be walking down the halls of SHAPE headquarters in Europe or NATO headquarters, as well as the UN. And then the next day, they can be walking down the halls of Area 51 or S4. Carte blanche. Carte blanche.
Yeah.
And they can tell us what little toys they want to give us. But we are so proud of those little toys
Mhm.
We have China manufacturing them as fast as we can.
That's true. And it's
All of it.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yep.
One time I was on the internet, not on the terrace. I was on the internet one time. I was looking up
How dare
uniforms. I was looking up uniforms for a new ghost busting show.
Mm.
And I stumbled across a unique little website from China. I could order every military uniform ever on the planet. If I wanted the Belarus military, I could order that. Boots, hat, shoes, stripings, flags, the whole 9 yards. If I wanted to order the Chinese uniform, I could order it. The whole
That's
thing.
nuts. That's crazy.
And guess what? When you go to click out, they ask you how many tens of thousands do you want?
What?
Yeah.
Tens of thousands. We're starting our own armies. What's happening here?
So if you want to infiltrate
Yeah.
your enemy's compound, you need to dress like them.
Either that,
Absolutely.
or you could just create some really cool social media like TikTok,
Yeah.
and sign it away when you say, "Oh, I agree," to the 10 pages of whatever.
That's why I don't
So
have
please
TikTok.
install on my machine,
Yeah.
and then
TikTok
there you
is-
go. And it basically gives them rights to all kinds of things.
Yep.
If we don't need spies, they don't need spies anymore. The Cold War spies, now the industrial spies. We don't even need those. We just freely give it over.
Yeah.
eBay, Amazon,
Wasn't it?
TikTok, Instagram, we give it away. We just give it away. So we can be the next 15-second sensation.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry. We didn't build the internet. I didn't build the internet for this.
No,
But
that's like it makes our brains like you have an attention span of a gnat. That's basically how our children are growing
And
up right now. Our kids.
Working to keep it that way.
Yeah.
You know, look at all the money we're pouring into education. Wait a minute, we just did pour some money into education. So yeah,
You're right.
good
right.
job. Not to get political, but that was good to see about the student loans. Nice to see something for the people.
what kind of irks me, and I know a lot of people are on the fence about this, and this is just me. I'm just crazy old Dr. Lynch. Okay, so don't take anything I say, too seriously. Do your own research. But there's a high school which I pay taxes to. I mean, it's public education, city taxes, who have a football team that hasn't won a game in 10 years. Not a game, not a playoff.
Just a game. It's
Just a game in 10 years, okay?
It's a long time.
And then they wanted to raise more money through a bond issue. And I said, in my house, if we can't afford something, we just strike it from the budget.
right. That's it. Get rid of it.
We tighten our pockets. We tighten our belt. But no, not public schools. Whatever they can find money on, that's what we need. But then they said, we don't need any more textbooks. So they cut all the textbooks out so they can save money. We can get them online. All right. Well, then no one learns anything because it takes an initiative to go online to read a textbook.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So they didn't want to cut football, and they put up a brand new multi-LED screen so you can watch replays
Of the
It's
team
sad.
losing.
You haven't won a game in 10 years.
Well, they might be a new coach. I mean,
Yeah.
just saying. Maybe
I wouldn't
they
cut
should
that
put
out,
some-
but I mean,
throw a few bucks that way.
Yeah, the basketball team did good. The basketball team did real good. But the tennis team always does good. Okay, we'll throw the money in there. But if you're losing, that doesn't make any sense.
they need a new coach. I mean, I wouldn't cut out the kids need their
They need
sport.
new kids who don't have the attention span of a gnat.
You're right. I know where you're going with that. Yeah,
The games
but
are too slow.
yeah,
Oh, but they'll play universal video competitions,
yeah, I get that.
because their brains are that speed now.
Right.
Football's too slow and it injures the body. They live with these injuries the rest of their life.
Especially
They'll never reach professional levels.
right.
So why are we wasting money on something that's going to demoralize and hurt our children with brain injuries and spinal cord injuries and fractured, broken legs and limbs, because they're going to get a scholarship? Hooray.
Some
It makes
people
no
need it
sense,
though.
man.
Yeah,
So
well, you
it's
know,
not your ticket to
there's
freedom.
reading outlets for everyone, but you know,
Yeah.
when you think about you know, the US as like being this super intelligent superpower,
Yeah,
you know,
it was.
we're like 29th in education, something like that.
Geography.
You know, it's horrible.
They did this thing. I saw it on Seth
You doing
Meyers, I
something?
think it was Seth Meyers or whatever.
Yeah, we like
This guy walks around. Yeah, this guy walks around with a microphone, or is his cell phone, what it is, and he says he walks up to random people, and on the street and on the beach, and he goes, "Where was the Queen of England born?" And one response was Spain, Estonia.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what? And they said, what's the biggest city in the world? London. No, England. England's the biggest city in the world.
Yeah.
England. No, it's Tokyo. Tokyo is the biggest city in the world. But
They
anyway,
also asked, wait, I've got one for you. They've also asked, these are teen girls, do you know who the president of the United States is?
Barack Obama.
They did not even know. Yeah, I'm like, are you serious?
They were like two
That's
presidents
so
ago.
bad.
There's so many diversions, and that
It's
is the
so
downside of the internet. That everybody has a short attention span. They can't focus on some of the things that are important, or even decipher what might be important information to them.
Right.
It's just a blur of information, you know. And you're talking about teenagers who are, you know, more influenced by hormones than anything the president's doing, anyways. You know, I don't know if that's a good focus group, but you know, by the time they
knows who the president is.
You know, it's simple basic stuff. But you know, like back in my day.
I tell
you, back in my day, the Roman Empire did two things that brought about its demise. It was money. It went into massive debt they couldn't pay off. And two is the demoralization and the gossip, or the gossip created the demoralization of status. And then it just cut everyone down. So they were nothing.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And when that happened, there was no trust in the government. There was no trust in the country. There's no nationalism anymore.
Right.
Okay. So there have been presidents where the staff comes to him and says, listen, you can't say that you can't say that to the American public, or you can't pass this bill because they'll lose faith in you. And people won't sign up for war if they don't believe in you or don't trust you.
Yeah, I've heard that said before.
So you have to tell the people what their itching ears want to hear and move on.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Good night.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm long-winded, but
that's okay.
But at the same time, this is the psychology. If you know, the Scots, the British, the French, and a handful of Germans all want to be Roman. They all want to be Roman. They all want to sit back on their lounge and eat grapes and drink fine wine
and throw up.
Talk about how great they are.
They have vomitorians. They had vomitorians back then.
They had people to actually clean that out. Which
that
was because armor was so expensive.
Christmas was rather interesting.
yeah, that's true. But it was we call it Mardi Gras today. They would take this fatted calf, this bull, one day of the year, and the owners of the slaves would ride on the floats and throw out coins and jewelry. And the slaves would line the street and capture those coins. That was their bonuses, whatever they could collect. And the owners would just do that. And that was the Feast of Saturn, I think, or Feast of Jupiter. Feast of Jupiter, I think. Anyway, and they would take this fatted calf all the way down to the end of the city, and they would butcher it. And all night they would let their slaves drink wine and have this meat, this barbecue. And they would eat and drink, and then that was it.
Slaves became the owners became the slaves.
Right. And then that pacified the slaves.
Right.
Okay. Why? Because there was 8 slaves to 1 Roman. And many of the slaves were Roman citizens who lost their land and their way of income. So they put themselves in indentured servitude in order to eat 3 meals in a 3 squares and a cot, because they had demoralized the entire idea of Rome. Okay, we call it Mardi Gras today. The Catholic Church
Now,
says it's
right.
on Tuesday.
The
But
Christian,
that's the same
right? They
ceremony.
took it over. It's the same thing, but by the end of the they put it's a cake instead of a bull, and at Mardi Gras, and they put porcelain babies in it, and they ask who got,
Yeah,
There
that's
were
right.
also sexual aspects and murder that occurred as well. And some of those slaves did not live to see another Christmas.
No, the only reason why we have Christmas on the date that it is because not only is it the shortest day of the year, the sun rises for 3 days in the exact same spot before it starts to shift.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah.
So Jesus rises on the 3rd day to start a new year.
On the 25th.
Right.
Right.
The Catholic Church changed the time when Jesus died. Jesus actually died, I think, in the fall, or
isn't it January?
We call it Easter.
Oh, okay. This was March.
But anyway, that's when he's supposed to be crucified. But the whole idea is the Catholic Church changed it to where it is on December 25th, 24th, 25th, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, is because the sun's going to rise in the same spot 3 times before it starts the new year.
Right.
So Jesus rises. 3 days later, he rises from the grave, comes down, talks to his apostles, then floats off into the sky.
So
Thomas goes, you're a ghost. You're a ghost. And Pliny the Younger wrote stories of ghosts. So you're nothing more than a ghost, an apparition. And Jesus goes, no. Feel my hands. Put your fingers in the holes in my hands. And Thomas did. And he was there. But what Thomas did not know is that Jesus was a hybrid, a Pleiadian hybrid, and was resurrected through a scientific spiritual device, which they had on their ship. And when he ascended into heaven, if you believe that fairy tale, he was just being beamed up to his dad's ship and flew off to China. And his wife went to the south of France with the 2 children. She was pregnant with one, but the other one went with her. And that's where the first Vatican was created, in the south of France. Because why? The shroud, the holy shroud of Jesus's ascension in the grave, the holy shroud, was stored in the south of France. And it caught fire in 1216, and the rest is history. The first emperor of France was Jesus' son.
As I understand it, there's a long lineage. Like a big percent of people in the populace today are supposedly related to Jesus.
They got Pleiadian blood in him. He was a hybrid. And they have those resurrection machines for 100,000 years. And that is why they can go out to war, lose 1 billion people, and in 2 weeks have those 1 billion people back. Their militaries are cloned.
Recklessness and lack of care of human life.
Yeah, they don't care. They conquer death in their own mindset.
As always,
their love for their place in the universe is so great they'll risk their lives 100,000 times. They've conquered their death, but they do it with a spiritual science that we don't even have a clue. Don't even have a clue on how it works. We're just getting to the energy source of it. But to make a science that puts the soul back into the body after you flooded it with tachyons to repair its damage, and then he's walking around Jerusalem. It's like, why do you seek the dead? There's no dead here. Go down to the city. It's like, well, how did that happen? That must have been a miracle. No, it was a technologically advanced science. We just haven't got our minds wrapped around it. So if you believe in materialism, Jesus had to come back. But if you believed in energy, he had to put that soul and put it back into that body.
Well, we've reached 11:30, and
Okay.
I think it's time we got to wrap things up.
Gotta wrap it up. Okay. Okay.
But no, you've been awesome, and you were requested
actually
to come back on next week.
Next week, yes.
Which we can't do next week, but we're going to do a week in the future.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah,
Do you
I'm
like?
always open. I like talking with people who like talking. You know what I'm saying?
We love what you have to say.
We love it. And,
I get interviews by people who want to give me their diatribe. You know, I was a poor white child adopted by a black family, and I have no rhythm. Okay, well that's fine. You're not my patient. I'm not going to listen to that story. You know?
The Script of the Jerk, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That was
Steve Martin. A
We
great
just
movie.
talked about that movie. That's
Love
weird.
that movie.
Yeah.
Really? You like that?
Me
I've got
too.
a quote on my Facebook somewhere. It was back in 2007 or whenever I started it.
Yeah.
But
it was funny.
You got to learn two things: that shit and that Shinola. No differences.
Mystery, science fiction 3000.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Mystery
us.
Science
Love that.
Theater, whatever, 3000.
Mystery
Mike
Science Theater,
Mike
yeah.
Nelson said this joke about his dad. His dad would always say this. He says, you put dreams in one hand and shit in the other and see which one piles up first. You know, which one's
Thank you, Alice.
and it's like, yeah, you know, sometimes, yeah, but you've got to have dreams. I mean, and this is a secret. This is the secret of the universe. I don't want to tell too many people, just YouTube and everyone else is watching.
Thank you, Clairvoyant Rose. Sorry.
Your imagination is one thing they gave us, and they cannot fight us against. They cannot fight against our own imagination. Okay? And I want people to understand that. Dreams are received by the universe and they go into effect. But imagination unlocks thousands of doors, and the extraterrestrials, cannot stop it. They cannot stop it. When we were created, they gave us their strengths, and that is imagination. That's curiosity. Okay. They also gave us our weaknesses: limited lifespan, immune system problems, autoimmune system problems, all that stuff. But if you look at the strengths, it's imagination that becomes reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
That's very well put.
It's really like a survival skill. But
Yes.
maybe we'll pick that up on the next show.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Josh, Alice, Ann, everybody, all of you guys.
Texas Wrath
Clairvoyant
Hunters.
Rose,
Yes.
Texas Wrath Hunters. I think
Thank
you had
you
a
for
question out
joining
there.
us.
We're sorry if we didn't get to all your questions tonight.
I know those guys. I knew that Texas. No, that's the other Rat Hunters. They were in.
One of them, right?
They were in The Exorcist Live. I know those guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I knew what was called Science Lab. No, it wasn't Science Lab. Ghost Lab. Those guys from Texas, they had their own series. They came to St. Louis and they investigated a very haunted house. They couldn't find anything at the time.
It's St. Louis? Right.
Yeah, in St. Louis. And I just like, well, maybe you just don't have the right equipment, you know. But I find ghosts out there all the time, and half the time I'm not even trying, you know. But you just got to know. But again, if you're a ghost investigator, don't believe in materialism. That's just your devices to show you the energy that you're dealing with.
Right.
You know, so if you could trust your equipment, which you really shouldn't, when you trust your equipment, it's going to give you what it can do. And then you have to build on top of that and keep building, or reverse engineer it. And then that's how I got in, is by reverse engineering. What am I not seeing? What am I not experiencing?
I think relationships are a big part of that too. But maybe we'll talk about that on the next one. Hang on, because we're going to set that date if you like.
Yeah.
And
got my materialism right here.
Yeah, well, we love having you on.
We love having you on.
We want to thank everybody for joining us. Saturday's Bigfoot and the Bunny. We have a mutual friend of the three of us, Nathaniel J. Gillis, will be joining us.
Yes.
And we'll be talking all things UFO, demon, and otherwise.
Oh,
So
yeah.
very interesting show. Stick around. And again, thank you, everybody, for
Thank
joining
you again,
tonight.
guys. We appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Have a great-
Bye-bye.